School hallways across Texas are empty these days. The year's session has ended. Students and teachers are on summer vacation.
Question for you. Something really weird happened to me.
But the silence in these halls hangs heavier than in years past. The end of the school year came days after a mass shooting at Robb Elementary School in Uvalde, Texas, left 19 children and 2 adults dead. The deadliest shooting in more than a decade left the school and its community in shreds and made fear a permanent fixture in the minds of students, parents, and teachers across the entire United States. Teachers in particular are increasingly worried about how they can continue to teach.
Ton of black magic cameras.
Ken Rogers has been teaching film and television at McCallum High School in Austin, Texas for 15 years. He says this is not the first time fear has invaded his classroom.
A few years ago, McCallum was under threat. A young man told his father he was going to kill a bunch of people at McCallum. And he had a gun on layaway at Walmart, a rifle, and went down to pick it up. Father called the police. They intercepted him before he got to the school. So we got really lucky. But that got really, really stressful. And pretty much after that, all the doors had to be locked. I mean, it's kind of ridiculous in some ways because even though all the doors are locked, you know, if a student had a rifle or something hidden and came to one of the side doors and knocked on it, another student would just let them in. You know, so it's easy to get in. You know, it's never never a good situation. So there, you know, this whole thing about only having one entrance and exit, you know, it's impossible.
As the educational community emerges from the first deep, dark stages of grief and shock, more are beginning to question the future of schooling in the United States. A recent poll by the Texas American Federation of Teachers shows 90% of Texas school employees have worried about a shooting happening at their school, and 66% of them had considered leaving their jobs in the last year.
It is important that you think about the giftedness that they're displaying.
Tammy Conrad teaches advanced math and is the nurse at a school near Round Rock, Texas. She too has been teaching for 15 years.
I'm also responsible for social emotional learning. I'm responsible for making sure they're safe while they're on campus and communicating with parents and communicating with other staff. I'm the nurse if somebody gets a boo-boo. It's a million things, really.
Added to those million things, the increased prevalence of the threat of gun violence.
That makes my job a lot more stressful. It's definitely something that we all worry about as we're going through our daily routine. We have to be considerate about whether our doors are locked or whether the main building doors are locked. We have drills where students go into lockdown and practice the procedures. We have to worry about that we're doing it correctly and that we're not stressing our students out too much. It's stressful worrying about ourselves not being stressed and then worrying about our students not being stressed.
The craft of teaching changed irrevocably in 1999 after the Columbine High School shooting in Colorado left 13 people dead and brought the once unthinkable specter of violent death in the classroom into reality. And since then, it has only gotten worse for the adults charged with not only educating children, but with making sure they are safe. Teachers say their own needs are not often taken into account.
Teachers do get stressed out about the safety issues that are going on, about the school shootings that we hear about, and we can talk to each other about what we're thinking. Most teachers, I fear, don't. We kind of keep it bottled up inside. We're afraid to talk about it because then it might be real. But you can see it on teachers' faces when a shooting happens, when you're walking around the building and you're looking at people and people don't want to look each other in the eye because they're afraid they're going to cry. It's very stressful. We're not only worried about our own safety, but the 22 kids in our classroom and the other kids that we see throughout the day. You know, we can't imagine what that would be like to go through a school shooting.
Safety measures and routines that were once unthinkable are now part of daily life in the classroom.
So if someone does, you know, try to break in, it'll keep the door from opening. And in my room, we usually we have a back studio. We usually go back in there, shut the lights off, and just be as quiet as we can. And it's really hard to keep teenagers quiet, I would say, you know. It's all ridiculous.
The threat never goes away.
But there's always that thought that, you know, is something gonna happen today or something gonna happen tomorrow, you know? I try not to think about it too much while I'm teaching. And sometimes when the kids talk about it, you know, we talk it out. If Uvalde had happened earlier in the year, you better believe there would have been a lot of discussions in class, you know. But other than that, I mean, I try not to think too much about anything other than, you know, the kids and teaching the kids and doing my job.
Saving legislation in many states across the country.
The National Center for Education Statistics reports 44% of U.S. schools have teaching vacancies. The shortage got worse at the height of the COVID pandemic. Educators fear that unless concrete actions are taken to address the increase in school shootings, even more teachers will leave the profession.
And so before Uvalde, we were already fearful about what would happen with our teacher shortage in the fall. Now with Uvalde, I know that people are thinking about whether or not it makes sense to go back if everything is still going to be the same. So I think we will lose some more teachers over the summer, and that is really something that we should be worried about. We can't graduate new teachers fast enough from the universities to replace those that are leaving.
The most recent incident sparked a new debate about how to deal with the school shootings. Calls for more access to mental health services for students and for educators.
At this point, we never know when it's going to happen or where it's going to happen, and that's very frightful and worrisome and a burden that we're all wearing on our shoulders. I think, you know, for sure that affects our mental health, right? And we've been asking for our congresspeople to do something for years, repeatedly over and over and over, and they continue to, instead of doing more things, they take away the bills or the laws that they've previously implemented, and it's very frustrating.
And some suggestions that teachers be armed in the classroom, which have led to more frustration among teachers.
But I can tell you this, the day they arm the teachers is the day I walk out of school.
The most recent shooting sparked not only grief, fear, and frustration, but a longing for simpler, more innocent times.